The Danish Deception, Part 1. Hello, and welcome to a new series that I will be calling The Danish Deception. And throughout this series, I'm going to be going through the details and events that happened throughout my 3-year relationship with a man from Denmark who I truly believed was going to be the love of my life and the father of my children. And I now believe him to be the most despicable, two-faced, narcissistic, evil person I have ever encountered in my entire life. And I know a lot of you are probably thinking that's a very heavy statement to make. Believe me, I mean every single word. I know a lot of you are probably wondering, why are you sharing your life's most intimate and traumatic experience with a sea of strangers? Well, there's a multitude of reasons, but there's 3 big ones. And I'm gonna share with you the first 2 reasons. And the third one, I'm going to wait and share with you at the end of the series because I don't wanna give anything away. But the first reason is that this is my way of telling the world that love is a powerful, powerful drug. And if you're someone that's knowingly or unknowingly in an unhealthy or toxic relationship, I want you to know that love is a powerful drug, and it clouds our judgment and it makes us think in ways we wouldn't think otherwise. And if you're someone that's also trusted the wrong person, you're not alone, and you need to give yourself grace and compassion because it happens every day. The second reason is that this is my way of protecting others, and whether it be someone that might encounter my ex, or let's be real, there's some horrible people in this world. I want to protect other people from going through what I went through. And if there's one person that can watch these videos and see some signs in their relationship that they didn't see before, and they can remove themselves before too much damage is caused, then it's 100% worth it for me to do what I'm doing. What you guys are about to hear is going to be one of the most beautiful love stories you've ever heard in your entire life. And for that reason, I need to make sure you guys all prepare yourselves because it's gonna take a very drastic turn. And this is gonna be one of the most insane roller coaster of emotions that you guys have been on. And if you were a fan of the Who the Fuck Did I Marry series, unfortunately, the story you're about to hear is significantly worse, and it pains me to say that. This next part, I'm actually going to channel my inner Risa Tisa because I loved the way she did her introduction and disclaimer video. Everything you're about to hear is the truth and can be verified by multiple people in my life, and I actually have a folder in my phone that's labeled evidence, and it can support probably 80% of the things I'm gonna say throughout this series. So if my ex or anyone else wants to come forward and say I'm fabricating any of this, I will be more than happy to release the receipts to the world. I'm gonna tell the truth, even if it makes me look bad. And there's gonna be times that you guys are gonna be looking at me crazy. And refer to reason number 1, love is a powerful drug. I'm gonna be using a mixture of aliases and real names because I don't have everyone's permission to use their names, and my priority is remaining respectful to everyone that was involved, everyone except for my ex. And in case you guys are wondering, I'm going to be referring to him as my ex throughout this series, mainly because I feel like if I say his name every day this frequently, it's gonna cause me to become physically ill, and I do not want that. I don't know how many parts this is gonna be, but I know it's not gonna be 52 because I don't have the patience for that, but I will try to get these out as quickly as I can. I'm a real estate agent, so my careers can be very demanding unexpectedly at times, but I will try to get these parts out as quickly as I possibly can. I come from a beautiful, strong Nigerian family that was built on deep respect and unbreakable support. And we have never experienced trauma at this magnitude. So this situation completely rocked us to our core, but I truly believe that we will come out of this stronger than ever. And I just wanted to take a moment to just thank my friends and family for giving me the courage and the strength to be able to come forward and share my story, because I feel so much love from the people around me, and I wouldn't be able to do this without them. And I really just wanted to end this video with a message directly to my ex. And frankly, I don't think he's gonna be watching this because he's a coward. But in the event that he is, this message is for you. You have lived a life where you've hurt so many people and you've created damage in the lives of many, and no one has ever truly held you accountable for your actions. I was silent for a very long time, and that silence only benefited you and it never benefited me. And I'm sharing my story for my healing, for my strength, and for my growth. And you might not believe this, but this is not about revenge. This is about protecting others and reclaiming my power, because I survived a story that I never asked to be a part of. And I'm gonna tell it with honesty, intention, and power, because my voice will no longer be minimized. So you guys, welcome to the Danish Deception, and it's time to get this thing started. So let's head on over to part 1. The Danish Deception, part 1. Okay, so it all started in June of 2022. I was in a place in my life where I was working 2 jobs. I was working like a dog, and I knew I needed a break. So I reached out to my friend, Sarah, who was living in Germany at the time with her husband, and I said, let's take a trip. Let's go somewhere in Europe. And she was so down, and we were trying to decide where we wanted to go, and we decided to go to Hvar, Croatia, because we wanted somewhere that was like a cute local town that was by the water, but it wouldn't be as crazy busy as other places in Europe. And so we decided to go to Hvar. We flew to Split first, met there, took a ferry over. And at first I was just so amazed at how beautiful this place was. And so the first night I was a little bit jet lagged. So we kept it very chill, grabbed dinner, then went back to our Airbnb. And the next morning when we woke up, we had literally 2 things on our agenda, and that was to eat and drink and be by the water. And well, I guess that's 3 things, but yeah, eat, drink, and be by the water. So we went to Hula Hula, which if you've been to Hvar, you've been to Hula Hula. It's this beach club that's very well known there, and it's right on the water. And we're laying in day beds kind of off to the side, minding our own business, sipping mojitos. And I look up and I see this very attractive man. And the first thing that came to my mind was, this man looks like he is walking straight out of a Calvin Klein ad. And I'm telling you guys, 6'3", blonde hair, blue eyes, chiseled skin, so tan, muscles everywhere. I was definitely taken aback, and I feel like it takes a lot for me to really double take a man just based on his looks like that. And 100%, I was a little bit just in awe. I didn't even realize that he was like with a friend at first. And so I'm still minding my own business, keeping it chill. And he looks over at me and he says, how are the drinks? And I said, the drinks are wonderful. We're just sipping mojitos. He said, should I get us all around? And I said, absolutely. Number 1, he's cute. Number 2, who wouldn't want a free mojito? So I said yes. We got a round of drinks, and we're sipping our drinks, and we just start small talking. And I asked them where they're from, and they say that they're both from Denmark. My ex was living in Copenhagen, and then his friend was living in a smaller town called Aalborg, which is north of Copenhagen, and that was actually my ex's hometown, that his friend was still living there. And so we were just small talking the whole time. We didn't really talk about a whole lot of things. It was just like, where are you from? And just basic things. But they were asking us, what's your plan for the rest of the trip? And we told them, we're doing a full day boat excursion tomorrow, and then we're going to dinner tonight at this place called Dalmatino. And he said, oh, how's the dinner spot? And I was like, I don't know, but I got recommended by a friend to go there. And he was like, okay, well, maybe we'll meet up with you guys again later. And I said, sure. So we're getting a little bit tired. So we decided that it's time for us to leave. And so as we're leaving, I decide to make a bold move and just ask him for his Instagram. And obviously I'm trying to be a little sly. So I asked him and his friend for their Instagrams, and we exchange Instagrams. We get into our taxi to go back to our Airbnb, and we're literally en route to our Airbnb, and I get a DM from him, and he basically said, it was so nice meeting you. Have fun at Dalmatino. Maybe we'll see you guys later. Didn't read anything into it. I just was like, it was fun to just have a conversation with a cute guy. And so we go back to our Airbnb, we get dressed, we get ready for dinner, and we're like on our way to dinner, and he is like messaging me about the restaurant and asking us details about it. I didn't like think anything of it. But we sit down, we're having dinner, we have a spectacular dinner, and we're finishing off the evening with our desserts, AKA espresso martinis. And I'm sipping my drink and I look up and I see him and his friend at the restaurant. And they walk up over to us and I'm like, oh, hey. He's like, yeah, like they're a little booked up, but they said they can like seat us in like 20 minutes. I was like, oh, cool. Well, we're about to be done, but you know, we'll go grab a drink. Maybe we can like meet up later. And he said, okay, sounds good. So it was kind of awkward timing because we were finishing up dinner while they like hadn't even been sat yet. And so we went to a bar across the street and we were grabbing drinks, and I just like, I hit a wall and I was like, okay, now I need to go to sleep. And I was super jet lagged. And so I sent him a DM just basically saying, hey, we are so tired. We have a full boat excursion tomorrow. I don't think we're gonna stay out much later. And he was like, that's totally fine. And so the next day we wake up, we get on the boat, and I start obviously posting like all my cute photos. Like, remember I took a photo driving the boat, and like we were just, you know, having fun. And I was like looking at my Instagram story, and I see he's like hearting every single story, and like he's responded to a couple of them. I am not the type of person that reads very much into activity on social media like that, but it was something that I noticed. And so, you know, we continued on with that for like a day and a half. And then he reaches out to me and he says, hey, like, what are you guys doing? And at this time, it is our last night in Havar. And he said, what are you guys doing tonight? And I said, we don't really have plans because we didn't. And he said, well, do you guys want to come to dinner with us? And me and my friend were like, absolutely, sure. And she wasn't really down to go. I kind of forced her because I was like, this guy's hot and it's a free dinner. Like, let's just go. It'll be fun. And so she's a good friend, so she came with me, and we get to the restaurant, and him and his friend are sitting across from each other. So obviously I took the seat next to him. I was sitting across from my friend, and we're sitting there, we're having a wonderful dinner and drinking tons of wine. And I come up with this idea to play this game where I'm asking his best friend to describe what my ex's type was. And because we were obviously like vibing with each other, and I was just curious. And so his best friend starts listing off everything, like good morals, hard worker, all these things. And like, I felt like he was describing me. And after his friend was done talking, my best friend basically said, you know, aside from being a good cook, she checks off every single box. And I remember I looked at him, my ex, and I said, but I will become a great cook for a good man. And he starts laughing. And I remember I put my hand on his leg, and that was the first time in my life that I felt that instant electricity from someone's touch. Like, it literally felt like I was getting shocked. And we instantly like had this physical attraction towards each other. And we started talking about what we did for work. And I told him that I was working as a real estate agent and in tech. And then he told me, I'm actually chief commercial officer for a ad tech company that does marketing for real estate companies. So I was working in real estate and tech, and he was working in real estate and tech, and everything just like felt like it was aligning. But again, I'm like, this guy lives in Copenhagen. There's nothing that's gonna come from this. So after dinner, we go and grab some drinks at a bar nearby, and we grabbed one drink, and they're definitely gearing up to go back out. And it was our last night, and my friend really did not want to go out. And I am not the type of a girl to ever leave my friend for a man, never in a million years. So I ended up just saying, hey, I think we're gonna call it a night and we're gonna head out. And he was respectful of that 100%. And I remember we just hugged goodbye and we left, and that was it. And so we're going back to our Airbnb, we're walking home, and I get a DM from him. And he said, it was so nice meeting you. I hope it's not the last time. Also, South Africa is happening. I can see it. And the reason why he said that was because I was telling him that I had wanted to go to South Africa for that following Christmas. and because my family was going to be traveling. And he said, I've always dreamt of going to South Africa. And I jokingly was like, well, you're invited if you want to come. And so whenever he made that comment to me in the DM, I was like, okay, sure. I am not thinking anything of it, right? At this point, whatever, like this guy lives 5,000 miles away from me. I'm not thinking anything of it. So the next day, my friend goes back to Germany and I go to Barcelona to meet up with some friends. And again, I'm like posting throughout my trip, and every time I look at my phone, it's like he's DMing me, messaging me, and he's continuing all of this. And I'm just a little bit shocked, but also like very interested still at the same time. And he was remembering things that I told him at dinner. Like I had told him that I was gonna buy a Chanel bag because I wanted to reward myself for working hard. And he had messaged me and been like, hey, did you get your Chanel bag? And I was literally like drunk off sangrias in my bikini and cover up in the Chanel store when I got that DM. And I sent him a selfie and he said, this is the best photo I've ever seen. And I just like felt like I could just be myself with him already. And you know, we were just getting along and having good conversation. So again, he doesn't even have my phone number at this point. We were literally just flirting through DMs. So I end up leaving Barcelona the next day and I land and he sends me a message and he said, what are you doing this weekend? Do you want to go to Ibiza? And I saw the message and I was like, what? And we will continue in part 2. The Danish Deception, part 2. Okay, so he sent me this message saying, you should come to Ibiza this weekend. I'm going with a bunch of friends. And he's like, I'll send you the flight. Everything will be paid for. And I thought about it for a second because come on, who wouldn't want to go to Ibiza? And then I thought a couple of reasons why I didn't want to go was mainly because I just bought a Chanel bag. So I was like, I want to work and make more money. And also I felt like this is the type of guy that things come easy for him. And this is not something that's going to be easy for you to obtain. And I didn't want our first weekend to be like just partying together with all of his friends. Like that's not what I wanted. So I ended up telling him no, but I just ended up saying that I needed to work. And I thought he was never going to talk to me again, but somehow this like lit a fire under him and he became even more persistent and he started pursuing me even more. And he was sending me messages like, when are you going to come visit me in Copenhagen? Or I would love to come to Dallas to come see you. And I was just like, who is this man and what's happening? Still not really taking him serious. And then maybe like a couple weeks later, he sends me another message. And at this point, we're still talking pretty consistently on Instagram. We still do not have each other's numbers. And he sends me a message. He says, hey, I have a work conference coming up in Monaco and I would love for you to come. And I read that message and I was like near the south of France, like that Monaco? And he was like, yeah, like I can get you your flight and everything will be taken care of. And I was like, okay, well, give me some time to think about it because I didn't want to say yes on the spot, but I was like, okay, this is something I definitely want to consider. So I thought about it for a while. I talked to my friends about it. I talked to my sisters about it. At first I was like, I don't think I'm going to do it. Like, this is crazy. And then over time I started like talking myself into it. And then one morning I woke up and I was like, you know what? Screw it. I'm going to go to Monaco. So I sent him a message and I said, hey, I've decided I'm going to come to Monaco. And he sends me a message. He said, this is the best day ever. I'm so happy. Send me your passport and everything. I'll book the flight. So I sent him a picture of my passport. And I also was like, oh, and by the way, here's my phone number. He was like, I've been waiting for you to give this to me for now like weeks. And I said, okay, here you go. Thank you for like inviting me on this trip. So I give him my phone number and he sends me a message and he said, it took you long enough. And I said, oh yeah, well, sorry. I'm just a little bit more reserved when it comes to like dating and men. Like I just like to make sure like I'm a very intentional person. And he was just so respectful to me. I remember when he was booking the flights and everything, he was like, don't worry, like I'll get you your own hotel room. Like he was just being so respectful. And so I remember our very first phone call so perfectly because it came completely out of the blue. It was like on like a Tuesday and I'm sitting at my work desk and he sends me a message. He's like, can I call you? And I was like, oh, he wants to call me. And I'm literally discombobulated, freaking out. Like, what am I gonna do when this man actually calls me? But I was like, you need to get together. So he calls me, I answer the phone, and he's actually in a cab to the airport. He's about to go on a work trip, and we were just small talking about our day. And I felt like those like butterflies that I felt whenever we had been together at dinner in Croatia. And I remember getting off the phone with him, and I was just sitting there like cheesing, like, which I don't ever do. And I was just, this guy is special. And he sent me a message, and he was like, you are so cute. Like, I love talking to you. And I said, I love talking to you too. And so basically from that moment on, we just started talking on the phone all the time, like for 1 hour, 2 hours a day. We started talking about a lot of things, about a lot of different aspects of our lives. He was telling me that, he was living in Copenhagen. He was living in this condo. Obviously, he knew that I lived in Dallas. And then we started talking about past relationships. And I told him, I was very honest. I said, I actually haven't had like a truly serious relationship before. I have always been a very independent person, but I do want to meet someone. I do want to like get married and have kids, but I don't feel like that pressure to like force it. Like, I have such a great example with my parents, and I really want to have like an amazing love in this lifetime. And so I'm going to take my time to find that. And I asked him, like, what's your history with your dating? And he was like, yeah, well, I actually was in a relationship with a girl, and we were together for about 4 years. And I actually broke up with her about 4 months before I met you. And I said, oh my gosh, like, the 4 years is a long time. He said, yeah, like, it needed to happen for a while. And really what happened was that she told him that she was ready to have kids, and he wasn't ready to have kids. And I guess that forced him to realize that she wasn't the one. And they were living together. So it was like a really hard situation to get out of, but he finally was able to do so. And so I was happy to hear that had been about 4 months since they broke up, because if he had said like they had just broken up, I would have been a little bit more hesitant to pursue things, because I know like you go through a breakup, you need time to heal. But I felt like, okay, 4 months should be enough time. And then we started talking about like our families a little bit too. I told him I'm super close with my family. He said I'm really close with my mom and my little sister. I do have an older sister that I don't talk to. And basically something happened, and she was like being like physically abusive, verbally, physically abusive towards his mom. And he decided to cut her out of his life because she's crazy. And I said, listen, I get that. That makes sense. Like, you should not have her in your life. And I think just like over the course of a month, we're talking on the phone for just hours. And I tell people all the time that it felt like we fell in love over the phone, because from the time that I had decided to go to Monaco to the time that I actually left for Monaco, it was a month. And we had this plan that we weren't going to FaceTime at all, because we wanted the next time we saw each other to be in person, which I thought at the time was super romantic. And so, we started talking about like hypotheticals. I remember he told me one day, he said, if we ever end up getting married, you're going to meet the queen. And I remember just like laughing at that comment. And he said, no, I'm being serious. And I said, what do you mean I'll meet the queen? And he said, well, my family has a royal title. And I was like, wait, what? And he sent me this link to this site. It's called the Order of the Elephants. And he said, you can do some research and then we can talk about it. And I said, okay. So I start going through the page that he sent me, and I see someone that had the same last name as him, like some old guy from like the 1700s. And I remember taking a screenshot, and I said, is this your great great grandpa? And he goes, now you're getting on track. My next question to you is, how's your etiquette? And I was like, I think it's okay. And so I'm sitting here like, who is this man? He's attractive. He has a great job. He has a royal title. Like, is there anything wrong with him at this point? And I have always believed in the term, it's too good to be true. But and I was feeling that 100%. Like, I felt like, when's the other shoe gonna drop? But it didn't drop that first month. It was just like, we truly fell in love over the phone. And so we are getting closer and closer to the trip to Monaco, and I start packing, and I feel like that's like when the nerves start hitting me, was when I'm packing, like, oh my goodness, this is actually happening. And I remember my sister was like, you need to put air tags in like all your bags. And I'm like, I don't need to put air tags in anything. Like, I trust this man. Like, I know like it's gonna be okay. Like, every part of me felt like so safe with him already, which was crazy because I hadn't really spent much time with him. Maybe this is trauma from being on The Bachelor, I'm not sure. But I felt very safe with him. And so the day comes where I'm supposed to go on the trip. And so I order my Uber, get to the airport, and I felt like it was kind of like a good sign because I posted that I was at DFW, and one of my really good girlfriends texted me that lives in a different state. She was like, hey, I'm actually in DFW too. And I was like, oh my gosh. So she comes, meets me at my terminal. She's like, where are you going? I go, I'm actually going to Monaco to meet this guy that I met in Croatia. And she was like, this is insane. And so I just felt like seeing that friend was like a good sign. I don't know why. And I ended up just boarding the flight. I remember boarding that first flight. I had a layover in Madrid, but boarding that first flight, I was sitting there and I was like, this shit is really happening. And all the nerves are just taking over, but I'm like, take a chill pill. It's gonna be okay. You're gonna get there. It's gonna be fine. And at that point, I was like, okay, the worst thing that happens is like, he's a crazy person and I have enough money where I can like just book my own hotel and I'll just have a good time by myself. Like it'll be fine. So I like had that backup plan. But yeah, I had my layover in Madrid and then my next flight was to Nice. And so I board my flight to Nice. It was like a really quick flight. And I get to Nice, I land, I get my bags and baggage claim. I sent him a text. I said, I'm here. And I'm rolling both of my bags, about to walk out, freaking out. And let's continue on in part 3. The Danish Deception, part 3. Okay, so I'm walking out of baggage claim. I have my bags. And at this point, worst case scenarios are playing in my head. I'm like, what if this whole thing is just gonna be so awkward and we're not gonna have that connection like I think we have? But I also told myself, you're gonna have to figure it out and let's just do this. So I walk out of baggage claim and I'm scanning the scene and I see him. And everything in me feels peace and joy. And I just make a beeline to him. Like, it's one of those, like, I'm walking, but like low-key I'm running. And I finally get to him. He hugs me, but like he picks me off the ground and he's hugging me and I'm hugging him back. And then he puts me down. And he looks at me. He goes, hi, Bambi. And that was a nickname he used to call me. And I was like, hi. And we just proceed to make out in the Nice airport for 2 straight minutes. And I am not the type of person to ever do that, but I just felt so much attraction towards him and I just did not care. And I remember that we were in the taxi going to the hotel and we had to put ourselves at like an arm's length because we were just like going at it, like kissing. And I was like, this taxi driver is gonna start feeling super uncomfortable. So we're like, we need to stop. And so we get to the hotel, we check in, we get to the hotel room. And let's just say we had a wonderful time, multiple times. Mom and Dad, I am so sorry for that part. We ended up going to dinner afterwards and I just remember sitting here and I was like, I feel like this is my dream come true being here with you. And he said, I feel like this is my dream come true. Like, I'm so grateful to be here. Like, you're like my dream girl and you were even better than I remembered if that was even possible. And it just felt like everything was aligning perfectly. And so the next day we had a car rental. So we went to Monaco and that's where his work event was. And I remember he told me, he's like, I don't know if I'm going to be able to bring you to all of the events. And I told him, you know what? I'm going to be in Monaco. So if you can't take me to things, that's fine. I'll just go explore the city. And I remember we get there and he had like a kickoff event, like first things first when we arrived. And so I wasn't invited. I also didn't really want to go. So he went to that and I was just like exploring Monaco. And he sends me a message. He said, hey, you're going to be able to come to the event tonight. Do you have something to wear? And I remember being like, I didn't bring anything like for like a professional cocktail party. And he was like, oh, well, we're in Monaco. So you wear whatever. And I said, okay. So I remember I put on this green romper and we went to this hotel. And I remember being super nervous because I'm used to like networking, but not with like Norwegians and like a bunch of people that aren't like fluent in English, which actually people in Norway, they all are fluent in English. I was very impressed. But I just started talking to different agents because these were all real estate agents and I'm a realtor. So I felt like I could connect with them so well. And I remember I was talking to this man, me and my ex were talking to this man and he was like, so interested by me. And he said, are you coming to the boat party tomorrow? And I knew there was a boat party coming up the next day, but I also just like assumed I wouldn't be able to go. And I said, well, I looked at my ex, I go, I don't know, like, am I? And my ex looks at me, he goes, well, you're talking to the CEO, so I think that's fine. I said, oh. The CEO was like, yeah, I'd love for you to come. And he was just so nice. And I met so many great people, and also just watching him in his element working, and he's just so charming and charismatic, and everyone, when people talk to him, they're just so fascinated by him, like I was. And so we had a great night, and then the next day was a boat party, and I remember I was just hanging out on the boat, again, just watching him go talk to all these big customers, and I didn't understand a word he was saying, but I just felt like he just looked like he was super smart. And later on that night, I remember they had another event, and I wasn't invited to that event, which is fine, but I came and met up with him afterwards, and we got drinks. And the next day we decided to head to Saint-Tropez. And I remember we get to the hotel in Saint-Tropez. This hotel is so nice. I've stayed in 5-star hotels before, but like I've never stayed in like 5-star hotels that are like a full suite with like private pool. And I like looked up the room, and it was like 1,500 to like 2,000 euros a night. And I'm like absolutely not used to this. And I remember telling him that, because I'm not the type of person to like walk into something like this and be like, oh yeah, like I'm used to this stuff. I'm not gonna be fake. So I told him, like, I am not used to staying in hotels like this, or like especially specifically suites like this. And he was like, well, you know, while we're together, I want you to know, like, I want to give you the world. And I was like, thank you so much. Like, I feel so grateful. And I remember telling him that in that moment. And later on that night, we go to l'Opera, and we're having a wonderful time, drinking great wine, having good food. And if you've been to l'Opera in Saint-Tropez, it's very much a party restaurant. Like, you have dancers on the tables. It's like, it's a party scene, but like, you know, that's also like kind of like my vibe when I'm like, you know, have a couple of drinks in me. And we're sitting at dinner, and he's talking to me about his mom, and talking about how he's so protective over her, and how much he loves her, and how he like would do anything for her. And I remember just like looking at him and just being like, this is like everything I want in a man. If a man is going to treat his family with respect, the chances of him treating your family with respect are so much higher. And I just felt like I saw his heart, and it just made me just fall for him even more than I had already. And I guess my thoughts had translated to my face, because he picked up on some expression, and he was like, what is it? And I was like, nothing. He said, tell me. I go, nothing. And then he grabs my face, and he pulls it close to him. He goes, tell me. And I say, I'm in love with you. And then I started bawling my eyes out at l'Opera in Saint-Tropez. And this was a sweet moment, but it was also very uncomfortable and embarrassing, because all the workers are all thinking that I'm getting dumped right now, when I'm really just falling in love for the first time, and like don't know how to control my emotions. And I remember just like bawling my eyes out and being like, I don't know what to do. I don't know what this feeling is. Like, I don't know what's happening. Like, and he's just sitting there smiling, and he's like, this is like one of the best nights of my life. And he looked at me, he goes, I want to say it back to you, but I also want to have my own special moment, so I'm not going to do it right now. And I said, thank you, God, because I would not want you to tell me right now. And honestly, never in a million years did I think that I would say I love you first to him, but he pulled it out of me, and I felt it. So I said, you know what? I'm going to say it. And I did. And it felt so good. And I remember we went back to the hotel that night, got some sleep, and the next morning we went to Bagatelle, and we had just like a beach day. And I used to tell everyone that this was the best day of my life, because we spent the whole day just swimming and laughing and eating and having such a great time. And I just thought to myself, like, I could do this forever. And like, I also thought to myself, like, I don't care if we're on a couch in Dallas, Texas, like, I just want to be around him all the time. And so that night we go to dinner, and I remember just asking him, what are the things that you think are important as we like enter into this relationship? And he told me, if you give me respect and loyalty, I will give you the world. And I told him I can do that. And then I told him, there's a few things you should know. Number one, your money is great, but it's the cherry on top of a great sundae. you could lose it all tomorrow and I would not go anywhere. Like, the money's just like this little added benefit, but I love you for you. I'm here for who you are as a person, not the money. Also, cheating is 100% a deal breaker for me. I just feel like I always need to like put that out there. I don't care if we've been married for 15 years with 4 kids, I will leave. I will not put up with cheating. And also, my family is my world. I'm a warrior for my family and friends. And please don't ever put me in a position where I have to choose, because like I love my family so much, and that would be a situation that would cause me so much pain, and I just would never want to be in that position. He said, I understand completely, and I love that about you. So we set those ground rules, and the next day we go to Cannes. And I remember that first day in Cannes, we're having a great time. We went to the beach for a little bit, and then we decided we're gonna go shopping. And he tells me, you can pick out whatever you want to buy, you can get it. So we're going to like Cartier, we're going to Chanel, we go to Dior. I see this yellow bag I fall in love with, but I felt so uncomfortable because I don't want this man to think that I'm with him for his money. And I didn't want him to feel like I was using him. So I remember just being like, oh, it's okay. Like, I love this purse, but I was like, it's just okay. And we end up going to Dolce & Gabbana, and I pick out this nice pair of $200 sunglasses. And he looks at me, he goes, dang, you're cheap. And I said, I'm a simple girl, even though I wanted the Dior bag. But I wanted him to know that I was there for the right reasons. Oh my gosh, bachelor trauma is still kicking in. And so later that night, we decided to go to dinner, and we're eating dinner, and I go to the bathroom, and I had myself a fall going to the bathroom, going up the stairs, and everything went black. And I will continue on the series in part 4. The Danish Deception, part 4. Okay, just to recap, we went to Monaco, then we went to Saint-Tropez, and we ended the trip in Cannes. And the very last night we had together, we were at dinner, and I'm walking to go to the bathroom, and I fall, and everything goes black. And let me tell you, I am a clumsy person. I know I'm a clumsy person. I'm always tripping over myself. And that day specifically, I had been tripping over my dress pretty frequently throughout the day. But I've never had like a serious accident before like this. And it was completely out of the blue. I was walking up the stairs, and I remember walking up the stairs, and the stairs in France are extremely narrow. If you've been, then you definitely would probably agree with me. And so I basically came to after falling, hitting my head, and I see these 3 men above me, and they're wearing like these bright turquoise polos. And I remember that they were the waiters. That was what they were wearing. And I remember just like coming awake and being like, what the fuck is happening? But no one was speaking any English. They're all like screaming in French, freaking out. And so I pass out again, then I come to again, and finally I'm able to say, someone go get my boyfriend. And then I pass out again, then I come to again, and then my ex is sitting next to me, and I see him, and I'm like, what is going on? He's like, I don't know what happened. I think you fell. And I'm like, I don't remember anything. I don't know what happened. And he looked at me, he goes, do you have a history with epilepsy? I'm like, epilepsy? No, I don't have any history with that. I was like, why? He said, because you've been having seizures for the past 10 minutes. And I was like, seizures? I have never, ever had a seizure in my life. So this was shocking news, but I also wasn't like all the way there. So I was just so confused at what was happening. And I remember touching my head, and then I looked at my hand, and there was so much blood. And then I like started looking around, and everything felt wet. And I was like, oh my gosh, I was going to the bathroom. So I look at him and I ask him, I'm like, is this pee? He was like, no, they just like dumped water on you. And I was like, okay. And so they basically told us that because the streets in Cannes are so narrow, they couldn't bring an ambulance. It had to be a fire truck, which I didn't care. I just wanted to get to the hospital. So these firemen come and they get me up, and I stand up, I look down, look at the puddle of water, then I smell my dress. I go, oh my gosh, this is urine. So you're telling me that I've been dating this man for 3 days, and he is now sitting in a pool of my urine and my blood, watching me have seizures. I was just I couldn't believe that this was the reality of what was happening. I get into the truck, and they take us to the hospital. And I'm still freaking out at this point because I literally don't know if I have like a severe brain bleed or what's going on. And they take us into the waiting room and they're about to take us back. And I remember the nurse said that my ex couldn't go back with me because they still had super strict restrictions from COVID. So he had to wait in the waiting room. And I remember just freaking out because no one is speaking English at this point. And I don't know what to do. I'm so terrified. I feel so alone. And I remember just looking at him and he could just see the fear in my eyes. And I'm like, I don't know what to do. He's like, just stay calm. I was like, okay. And he ends up leaning into me before they tell him that it's time to go. And he tells me, before you go, I just wanted to tell you that I love you. And I just remember being like, really? Here of all places? He was like, yeah, I wanted to tell you. And I said, I was so grateful to hear it from him, but also I was like, are you only telling me this because you think I'm about to die? And so a lot of things were going through my head, and I ended up going back, getting a CT scan. They ended up saying, hey, everything's good. You just have a severe concussion, hence why I had seizures. And they're like, you're gonna have to get 4 stitches in your eyebrow. You guys can kind of see the scar. I'm wearing makeup, so you can't really tell. So after I get my stitches, I go back out to the waiting room and I see my ex, and I automatically just feel this sense of protection and safety because he made me feel so calm, and I was just so grateful to him. And if you watched the Who the Fuck Did I Marry series, I truly believe that this whole experience was the equivalent to Risa Tisa's tire blowout before she met her ex-husband. And God was telling me to run far away from this man. My bad on misinterpreting this message. And I just thought that this was God's way of telling me that this man's gonna keep me safe. And clearly, that wasn't the case. But we leave the hospital and we go back to the hotel. And obviously I couldn't sleep because I had a severe concussion. So we just stayed up talking all night. And the next day I went to go get all my prescriptions, and then we went to the airport, and it was a really, really tough goodbye because I was just so sad to say goodbye to him. And he had already booked a flight to come visit me in Dallas in 10 days. He booked it before I even went to Monaco because he told me he was so sure of me and of us. And so I knew I was gonna see him in a little bit over a week, but it just wasn't enough. And I just wanted to be with him 24/7. But I said my goodbyes to him, and I was like, you know what? It's gonna be okay. I'm gonna see him soon. Hopped on the plane and went back to Dallas. And it was really difficult to come home for multiple reasons. The biggest reason was that I had to tell my parents that not only did I have this crazy accident, but I also am in love with this man that lives in Denmark. And that's just not a easy conversation to have with Nigerian parents. And if you know Nigerian parents, or if you have Nigerian parents, you can already assume how this unfolded. Obviously, they support me and they love me and they're wonderful parents, but they were also scared and like, what are you telling me right now? But I dropped the ball, and over time, like, they were so supportive of me and my decisions. I will say the bigger challenge was healing from the head injury because I was just doing crazy ass shit. Like, I remember I got into the shower with my socks on, and then I ran out the door with my bonnet on, chasing Smokey through the streets because I thought he ran away, even though he was inside the house. And to this day, I still think I have lingering effects because I'll add all these filler words, and like what I want to say in my head, I think it, but I can't figure out the words sometimes. And it's very frustrating at times, and you will notice it throughout the series, and it's not something I used to do, but overall, I'm fine. My brain's fine. So obviously, we're talking on the phone every single day because, you know, we're in a relationship, and he calls me and he says, hey, I'm considering offering on this apartment complex in Copenhagen. And we had talked about his real estate investments back in the south of France. He had told me that he owned 3 apartments in Copenhagen, 2 of which were rented out, one of which he was occupying as his personal residence. And this apartment complex he was interested in had 34 units, and then there was a top floor that was unfinished, and it could be converted to 10 penthouses. And he said it's fully rented out. It would be such a great investment. The cash flow is great. The only thing is that it's going to take up a lot of my cash liquidity and also like stocks and crypto and everything. And obviously I'm gonna be traveling to the States and I wanna be mindful of like finances. That's why I like wanna bring it up to you. So what do you think? And I said, well, at this point, we had been dating for like a couple weeks. So I didn't feel like I was in a place where I could insert my opinion. So I told him, like, whatever you think, I'll support you. And I also didn't know jack shit about real estate investments in Copenhagen. And also, I had just gone to the south of France with him. That whole entire trip, I had spent 15 euros the entire trip. I tried to pay for stuff. He would not take a dime from me. So at this point, I like almost am like searching for a way to prove to him that I'm not with him for his money. So I told him, I go, if I need to, take on some more of like the financial responsibilities in this relationship, I'm more than happy to do so, because this is a partnership and you're there for me when I need you, and I'm going to be there for you when you need me. And he said, I appreciate you saying that, but I don't think it's going to come to that, but thank you for saying that. I said, of course. So he offers on it, and his offer wins apparently by like 1,000 euros. And he decides he's going to move forward with this property maybe a couple days before he came to visit me in Dallas. And I was fully supportive of him buying this property, 100%, because he's a successful businessman. And if he thinks this is a smart move, then I trust him. And also, the money was a whole separate other thing. I didn't care. All I cared about was being with him. So he's coming to Dallas, and I'm getting excited, not just because he's coming to see me, but this is the trip where he's going to start to meet my people, and it's getting real. And so I remember he was flying into Dallas. It's the middle of September, and I made this sign. It said, "Welcome to Dallas, my Danish man." And I'm waiting outside baggage claim, waiting for him to get through customs. And I'm holding this sign super high, waiting for him to come through. And I will continue the rest in part 5.